Hello everyone, welcome to Satsang. Let's make some silence first. Nothing. No one. Nothing to do. Nothing to be. No one exists. Where the eyes see differences, the heart reveals oneness, not unity, oneness, not different parts that make up a whole, but just wholeness, no parts. Parts are the illusion. Oneness is I. So let me remind you, for those who don't know, we use WhatsApp as a means of communication. It comes directly to me, so it is private and conversation can become more fluid. As you're asking, I'm answering. And sometimes I ask more questions about the question I've received, so it makes communication much better. Because I don't have access to the chats. So whatever you put in the chat, they will send me through WhatsApp. Except, of course, Instagram. I can see it here. But still, if I can see it, everyone can see. So WhatsApp, it's much better. So what is called life is nothing more than a dreamlike state. I've spoken about this in other videos. You can check that out. The mechanics of life basically is the same as that which is called a dream. And one of the pillars that make this character and the environment which is inserted in meaningful, apparently real, is a balance between suffering, the immediate pleasure, and ultimately the long term, the hope for happiness. And this is a journey that everyone's making constantly. From the misery that they're at, from the bottom, the lowest, the painful state where they find themselves, until the highest that they can reach that point. And then they go back to the lowest, and then they go back to the highest. You see? People invest in their goals, spiritual, worldly, it doesn't matter, as long as it is not for liberation as an end, because for the majority, liberation is just a means for happiness. It becomes just something worldly because it is aimed to bring human happiness, so it's not liberation anymore. So this balance is very important, sustains a lot, sustains existence, this dreamlike existence, as you perceive it at this moment. And living in between these two extremes, it is normal life. So, for those who are in the quest for freedom, this will be a big obstacle. Because whatever is coming into your mind, into your instincts, whatever is coming there, it is about the preservation of the dream. It is not about freedom. The one that is ready to walk the path of freedom is not making decisions anymore. He is under guidance. So the mind is in a state that it was trained to become empty, silent, still. And that stillness requires a lot of previous effort. Then when it is emptied of desires, goals, and etc., and how do you say this, personal will, then it is ready to listen, to wait for guidance. And when guidance comes, it executes whatever that may mean. Because if it's not at that level, it is not a quest for freedom yet. Because you're following ideas that come into the mind that make sense to you. And what does this mean, making sense? It means that it fits your world of delusion. This is what means making sense. And for those of you think, oh, but I'm feeling and it feels good. This feeling is just a different mechanism for the same thing, because not exactly the same. It is better, but still it is depending on the motivations, the deeper motivations. And the deeper motivations are very difficult to access. Everybody thinks they know what their motivations are until they are really tested. So if the motivations are still worldly, this will give its approval on something according to these motivations. So guidance is that which can uproot you from that dreamlike state. If that is really what you want, but only in this movement of being uprooted, it will become clear. Sometimes with a lot of twists and turns, but eventually it will become clear. Because without it, whatever you're following, if you're following your reasoning, learning, studying, reasoning, and seeing what is better, what is worst, things may be changing, but you will find yourself into these cycles. From despair to hope, from hope to despair. Short cycles, long cycles, doesn't matter. This hope sustains everything. This suffering sustains everything. They depend on each other. Without this suffering, that hope would be useless. And in the middle of all this, immediate pleasure. Whatever source there is of immediate pleasure, it is being taken. Transcending this dreamlike state, it is difficult because at all levels that you are recognizing yourself, not all, but apart from one, all others. Whatever you are perceiving from there, it is illusion bound. It is part of the dream. Most of you, some of you, or at least a few of you, may have seen this already. Because people experience some kind of life with certain types of experiences. And for a lot of time, they feel that they cannot improve their life in any way. It's like it doesn't change. But eventually, in a period, if it can change or something happens that takes them from that kind of experience, and life really starts improving, their experience with themselves and with life starts improving. You start to become agitated. I've seen this many times with seekers. As they are coming for guidance, and it was not possible to experience something else, then as they are able to follow the guidance that is being given, things start to improve. They start to get out from those cycles of pain. And what happens is, as they are coming out of it, some, if not most, become agitated. This is equal to everybody. What happens next is that which makes the difference of who is who. And as they start getting away from what was normal for them, this agitation, it starts to become unbearable, that feeling good, that pleasantness, that promise that things can really change. What was aspired starts, the hope starts to become more like something more like tangible, instead of just a hope far away into a future that they really didn't believe. And what happens here? Well, logic says, well, they continue. Of course, they are seeing it's being proven that it is possible. So what more is needed? But that's not the case. Usually, they start sabotaging what is happening because they cannot live in a different reality. These are like security switches that your world, your particular delusion, has, like a firewall. It's not allowed. You cannot see a different reality or a different illusion. It's the same, because that is dangerous. So eventually they will not rest until they break whatever is happening and go back to that point of suffering. And with that comes a feeling of, I knew it. It was not possible. It was. But that's not what you were looking for. So being quest for happiness, I don't even use this word usually. I use the word truth because it is less dangerous. Well, where lies the danger? The danger lies. Happiness is not a word. It can be. It can be made as just a word, like truth. But usually, happiness has an image with itself. It creates an image in the mind of the seeker, or several images. Sometimes more concrete, other times is more foggy, but it is there. And as you say, happiness, it directly takes to that image. And that image is the future promise of happiness that is feeding, making real, confirming your suffering, and suffering is there to confirm, to give, to make needed that hope, that image of happiness. And they feed themselves like this. And of course, the character, you, in the middle with your attention moving into that roller coaster, you're as unreal as these opposites. It is the same image, there's no difference among it. They do not exist, you do not exist, but they all give existence to each other. So transcending these mechanisms that give, apparently, importance, meaning to this character. Without hope, without this tomorrow, what would be of today? Intellectually, a lot can be said about this, but forget about it, because intellect is not what is imagined. To transcend this, you need to go beyond what seems to be your will, your needs. So preparing yourself for guidance is the safer way to transcend these mechanisms of self-deception. So this balance between suffering and hope and whatever happens in between, and you can find these cycles where you are at your highest and when you are at your lowest. Sometimes these cycles are quicker, sometimes they take longer, but they are there. And human life, as you find it, is just about that. So, for example, whatever you're doing is bound, conditioned by approval of others. What does this mean? If others approve you, that will be a big part in that image of happiness, that future happiness. If you didn't need approval, for sure, you wouldn't be in the life that you are now. The majority of it would become just useless. So there are these big currents that worldly people are being driven away, and then there are other subcurrents. So these big ones, they are easier to get out from. These subcurrents, they are the backbone of illusion. And for those who can cross a little bit out of their own reality / delusion, they will see that there will be a resistance to be in that better place. Let's call it like this for a moment. It's just a different reality, a different illusion, same. different from yours. And that's dangerous because it's not yours. It is different. And when different becomes possible, anything becomes possible. So that previous reality is not exclusive, and is not so binding, it loses grip over you. People need to confirm constantly their reality. This is why they argue all the time. In spirituality, same. People go to this teaching and say, oh, but that's not right, the other one is right. This is not about teaching, it's not about anything. It's like people argue without, if it's not in spirituality, it is the same. They are confirming their reality, they are trying to confirm their reality. Because they need to confirm it, because, or else, what happens to them? So when you think you're arguing with someone, and someone is arguing with you, it's not. You're just both doing the same, trying to assert what you call reality to the other, in a lifeless mechanism. Paving the way towards awakening. To know about these things, it is important. Keeping it simple. And understanding that the real obstacle is you, nothing else. Those ideas, all of that. And these ideas of happiness, these images of happiness, everybody's following them, like a donkey follows a carrot. They are very difficult to let go. If you're not seeing this difficulty, it's because you're just following it. Most of times without even knowing it. Because when you know, when you try to break this pulling, you will see how hard it is, how powerful these images are. You have been feeding them all this time. And when you understand that you really don't want freedom, then you'll have a chance. Because you will know what you're up against. Because that's not your will. It is the character. It is the character that you are confused with. The character's goal, the mind's goal, is survival and prosperity in the dream. Its only existence, that character only exists in the dream. It comes with the dream, disappears with the dream. So whatever your wants are now, it is about maintenance of the dream. So when the spiritual path becomes in a serious matter, then it will start countering your ideas of happiness, going against them. And you find yourself getting out of this cycle where you usually go. It's like having your image of happiness as the goal in front of you, and you're walking towards it. And as things become intense, you will see that you will start deviating from that. It's almost like you're turning yourself to your own hell, your suffering, getting closer and closer to your suffering. And that's just because you are exiting your world. And all these securities, all these inner firewalls are screaming, no, this is wrong, this is wrong. Because I cannot live here. So the majority of time you don't even touch these things. It's just because, well, just a few practices or studying, mental studying, reasoning, and normal life takes up 95% of the rest of the time. But when it becomes serious, if you can take it at this level, then you will see these forces. So the quest for freedom, untouched by your images of happiness. And when it is untouched, you have to keep freedom as the goal, truth as the goal, with no, how do you say this, without a specific meaning, and without letting your personal ideas of happiness to come in the way, to hijack that, because they will. Working to be ready for guidance, so that when guidance speaks, you can follow it and leave this cycle. Because whatever comes from here, it is illusion bound. It is for the maintenance of these cycles, of that existence as you find it. And then, as you are moving out from this, you have to keep in yourself the original goal. You have to put it, this is what I want. Freedom, nothing else. No matter what happens, no matter whatever ideas come into my mind. Because the same ideas that are pushing you now to spirituality, because it seems interesting, nice, it's promising, and whatever. If you are identifying yourself with these thoughts, with this personal will, the time will come where this voice will tell you, no, this is not for you. Get out from this. And you will. And that world will be preserved. So whatever you're trying to build is a part of that dream. So stopping this, building this future investments is the best for several reasons. For several reasons. The simple you keep your life, the more simple you keep your life, the less things you will have to deal in the future. And whatever is not there to be dealt with, you can burn it in the fire of your intense spiritual practices. There's a lot. Attachments, for example. I have seen people, seekers, when they have nothing, they are completely detached. They don't have any problems with possessions or nothing like that. But sometimes destiny plays a trick on them and gives them something. And everything changes. See, having something, power is nature. The power of the power is to corrupt, to seduce and corrupt. But if you can keep a distance from these things, whatever, as they say in yoga, sanskars are there, they can be burnt without fully coming into play. Sometimes they have to. But keeping it simple is the best. Okay, I will answer your questions now. Dear Sriman, the time during my meditation is still very present. Despite this, I increase the meditation time. My life don't change, not better, not more bad, since meditation more and more. More madness as a joie, a joy, okay, in French. More sadness than joy. But I'm not looking more or less life, I'm looking truth. So this is a little bit confusing. I understand this is not your language. If you can put here in French also, it will help, because I understand a little bit French. And sometimes it's better for me to understand. But it seems that life is still more or less the same, and more sadness than joy. And this more madness as joie. Okay, you're using the same term, the different terms for the same thing. Sadness, madness. Okay, so this is normal. If you're intensifying your meditation, it is normal for sadness to come up. First is a little bit of peace, a little bit of well-being. This is superficial meditation practice. As it starts to deepen, then the stocks of sadness that are there starts arising. And it is arising to release, but they start to get experienced. And if you can intensify it even harder, even stronger, the more you intensify, it's like those cycles that I was talking previously. It's like they are moving at this speed, for example. As you intensify meditation, it increases, 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 increases along. And this is supposedly because if you are intensifying, you're doing it right. Because if you're not, it's difficult. As it touches the deeper levels of sadness. As you become more full of pain and suffering, then you'll give up. And, well, you will never get to that highest place in meditation because it is a factual experience of joy, happiness, of elevation, of growth, expansion, inner expansion. So it is similar as the cycles of life because it is cyclic, but it is very different. As you touch your deeper layers of suffering, then you can experience this growth, this a little bit of more freedom. Not freedom, but more expansion, more free, more bigger. And as you can complete one of these cycles, even if it is just one, you'll get a glimpse of how things work. So this is why people don't go too far in meditation. And it's not just about time that it is spent. It is about motivations. If motivations are not there, you can spend 40 years meditating. And those 40 years, that meditation that you are having, without even you knowing, it is about correcting those motivations. If they cannot correct it, meditation will stop eventually. But besides that, you are intensifying, sadness will start increasing. Le temps, être présent, comme de la patience, malgré la mutation. So this lack of this impatience that is there, it is a good sign. It is a sign that vibration is higher and your meditation is intensifying, but it is preparing for bigger chunks of suffering to emerge. So this cycle from deep suffering to expansion and joy, in the middle, silence intensifies. And with it, impatience, because what gets impatient is the character in the middle of that vibration, which is alien to him, which is threatening him, because he doesn't survive in that stillness, in that higher vibration. He survives in his normal state. So these are signs that things are moving in the right direction. But the other, life is not changing. It doesn't necessarily need to change. But something will explode somewhere. Is it outside? Is it inside? Something will, if things are moving in the right direction. So eventually, as it deepens more and more, this sadness will increase. It becomes more, in the beginning is most of the time sadness and suffering, pain, difficulties, negativities, all of this. And these small apotheotic moments of expansion and beauty and growth and even healing. And then everything goes down the road again to the lowest of hell. It is like this, and it is removing at each time at a more deeper level until nothing else is there. This is the mechanics of meditation. And as it goes deeper, then life may tend to change. 99% of times it will dramatically. But if you're meditating, but somewhere inside of you, you're still protecting things, then it complicates. Yes, motivation has to be observed, acknowledged. Acknowledged is a better word. Because you will always find, as your eyes become more clean, as you become more subtle, as you become more wise, you will start to, when you look again at your motivations, at the beginning they seem the best ones, spotless. But as you grow, when you look at them, you will see that things are not the way that they appear to be. There's an expression in Portuguese that says more or less that full of the best intentions is hell, or hell is filled with the best of intentions. Because usually these things are what you need them to appear to be. They are not meant to be very clarifying. So what you see today, after you work and you meditated and you work with yourself, you look again, you will see that things were not as they appeared to be. And this goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And these are seeds that your spiritual practices are feeding. And if you don't uproot when you acknowledge, then you're wasting time. That will probably lead to frustration. That will lead for you to give up, for example. And this is a cycle that is there, inbuilt also. This is why you procrastinate. This is why you sabotage your practices, to protect what I said in the beginning, that balance, that cycle. So you get frustrated and you go back because then you acknowledge that it is not possible and that was just a silly idea or whatever. So the best is even daily to observe motivations. It's like putting things in its right place, in perspective, because they will start moving slowly. If you bring back motivation to the best place, slowly, slowly, it will diverse and you will observe, if you're paying attention, your innocent activities will tend to slowly gravitate to you wanting a certain outcome instead of another outcome. You're wanting to preserve this or that. And it eats up your time very quickly, and you get distracted and time goes by. So motivation, it has to be kept in a check. Si la transformation ne vient pas de l'extérieur, elle viendra de l'intérieur. You see this transform, when you say, when I speak about inner and inside and outside, it's because what is seen as inside is less confusing. So this is the perspective of the body alone, of course. And these are just words for you to be able to understand this. Because if your focus is what you're calling the outside, it will be too confusing. You will not see the origins of it all. And inside the body, it's not inside the body, of course. It's a place, a space of apparent happenings. It is the beginning. It is where things seem to appear firsthand. You just don't see where they are coming, but you see them almost like getting birth, taking birth. So to focus your attention in that place is much more clarifying. So this is why meditation, for example, you sit, you close your eyes, you abstract your senses, you concentrate in that place. Because in that place, whatever that place may be, is where everything starts and where everything ends also. So this is where your attention should be. It's not just about suffering. You see, suffering is a motivator. But circumstantial suffering hides the biggest aspect of suffering, the source of suffering. And the real source of suffering is this apparent separation from yourself, from truth, from reality. This is the real suffering. Circumstantial suffering is just superficial suffering. And those who have this in mind only, for the majority, this doesn't take very far, because running away from this suffering, trying to not be exposed to this suffering, is pursuing the image of hope, the image of happiness. And pursuing the image of happiness, the image of hope, is to pursue that suffering, that intense suffering. And they feed themselves. Feel dependent of pleasure, because there's no real happiness. It's like you don't even have the energy. You're depleted, constant, because you're disconnected. So what is there that becomes the divine and God is pleasure. So you let go of everything but these sources of pleasure that are in fact sources of suffering. It is like this. La souffrance est l'origine de l'attente. Yes, we can say so. Or maybe my French is not as good, but yes, I think the real suffering is I origin, and the I paying attention to things. Yes, more or less. And there was another question previous that I didn't answer. It was... there was a question here. disappeared. And what do you think about the meditation on consciousness observing consciousness? Well, I'm not sure what that means, because this is quite popular these days. Awareness, observing awareness, or consciousness observing consciousness. A lot of people talk about this, but that doesn't really make it a meditation. So there's never actually a problem with meditation techniques. There's only a problem with understanding, with motivations, and then or meditation techniques become alive, fiery, or they don't. Usually this comes with another discourse. Not saying that it is the case, because it depends on each seeker. So this can be very good, or it can be nothing, depends on you. And there was another question here that is more or less tuned with this. A question from Prasun. Everyone says truth is here now, but then why can't we see it? What can we do for truth to be revealed? Well, the epic of the seeker of truth has to be lived. And this philosophy, this truth, it is a truth. It's being brought in a way that serves everybody and anybody. And usually this consciousness observing consciousness, it is not used as a practical meditation, but just in day-to-day activities, like attention is trying to move to itself. And it would be good if it had a basis. So without this silence increasing in meditation as you sit, and it becomes more intense, you feel like everything is elevating, vibration is high, that impatience is coming. From that, and as you are, this level of misery that is inside, that is there, whatever that means, is coming out. You're experiencing, and it is coming out. You're detaching from it, but you're letting its expression to come. You're not fighting against it. You'll start to grow. And then, yes, it is natural for attention to move towards itself, or consciousness towards consciousness, or the observer, the observed to the observer. It is normal. Or that attention collapsing at the source. It is normal as you are emptying your stock. But usually these teachings about truth is everywhere and you are truth, there's nothing to be done, and just observe the observer, this is coming, but into the hands of those who are not ready for this. So life continues as usual. There are some signs: lack of guidance, lack of the presence of the fire, lack of the presence of overwhelming silence, because there will be a body of silence where you are taken to, or get into, or taken over by. It doesn't matter, the words are just words, but it is there. So there are signs for this, but usually it's not taken this way. So all techniques are good, but that depends on the seeker. And the only reason why I point to these teachings, and as they are given like this, like it was meant for everybody. So everybody must be very dumb because they don't see it. This is the experience of the majority. So the majority that embrace these teachings, They spend their time, they observe when things don't go the way they want, and they don't observe very much when things are going in the way that they envision. And they are there discussing with other seekers, trying to assert their own reality. And the downside of this for these beginner seekers, and it takes a long time to stop being a beginner, because it's like trying to getting out of a maze, a labyrinth. If you don't know the path, you'll be there just banging walls a lot of time. As to other teachings, meditation, and well, meditation, let's just keep it here. At least you have something that can help you to move from wherever grounds of illusion you are. Still difficult, but it's a bridge like from illusion to reality. So knowing conceptual truth, well, the advantage is that it's like a direction, a north. That's it. It doesn't replace. No, it doesn't matter how many times you repeat, oh, but truth is everywhere. It will not bring anything. You have to stand up to that truth, to that highest truth. If you're not seeing, rub your eyes until you see it. And that means walk the path of the seeker of truth. And I understand that most of you are attracted to these teachings for different reasons, not just for the worst ones, but also for the best ones. But you have to work from where you stand. So putting in place meditation, intense meditation. Because for the majority, this only says there's nothing to be done, no spiritual practices, anything. And I just have to realize that it is here and now. While I'm just feeding my delusions, day-to-day life and the future and all of this, it is robbing your precious time with your consent. So, if you believe that, how is it? If you believe that truth is here and now, really, and you cannot see it, well, that is your signal that your eyes are not being able to see, because you're still sunk into the belief that this is what's real, the body-mind complex, the body-mind's life. So your perception, you have the reality, the concept of reality, and your perception. They are showing you more or less the distance of one to another. And then, but then there is this, but if you're practicing meditation, you are asserting that you are illusion bound. So you are giving reality to your delusion. But in the absence of that, what are you doing? If you don't even have meditation, you're just working to maintain, to secure your life, to seek after your desires and all of that. Is that better in any way? If there is a time to stop spiritual practices, it is guidance, Guidance will tell you, not as a feeling or a sensation or a reasoning. It will tell you. Either it comes from outside or you will experience inside, but separate, different from your own self. It will be different, and that means different from that character. You will feel it. You will see it as different. And it will tell you, stop. Now you stop. Before that, if you stop that, if you don't intensify it, all you have left is what everyone else has. And you'll just be chewed up by illusion, and just your time will just get wasted. Okay, so what meditation do you advise? Sincere and intense meditation. This is what I advise. Whatever is there, whatever practice you have learned, whatever you go learning, apart from listening to music and things like this, a serious meditation technique. Is it mantra? Is it focusing here? Is it focusing on a divine image? Is it kriyas? It doesn't matter. A serious meditation technique that you can apply your time, giving it as much time as you can and intensifying it. Treating that as the most sacred, the most important thing right now, as your staircase to freedom. This is the meditation that I advise. Yes, it is suffering that drives me into the path of truth. It is, but like I said, that can mean a lot of things. Understand that. If it is suffering that is driving you in the path of freedom, for freedom to transcend that limitation, you will have to be willing to embrace lots and lots of suffering. Because if you're just running away, you're just stuck in your delusion. So, because when you're looking for truth because of suffering, it can be a clarified state. It can, or it can be a delusion one. It's like just running away from suffering, going after the images of happiness, and going after the images of happiness, just going after suffering. And you can observe this in your life, these experiences. So for this to be a clear motivation, transcending suffering, you will have to be ready, be willing to take unbearable suffering, because transcending own reality or own reality/delusion is the biggest suffering of illusion. And the majority don't really want to. They just want to live those cycles. Just live those cycles. And the more asleep they are, the better. There's lots and lots of seekers that finally they came to something, a presence, the process becoming alive. And they start to wishing that they didn't know so much already. Because with that extra awareness, it becomes more difficult to live the same precious things. And they cannot get out from it, because they don't want actually, but they know too much. They start to curse this knowing too much, this having seen too much. So in terms of spiritual practice, of meditation, any serious meditation, starting at least 1 hour at a time. For beginners, at least 2 hours a day. And day by day, conquering more time, giving up more things, and making more time. Till when? Until the process becomes alive. And that doesn't mean it will stop there. It will mean that you will get direction there. Because the spiritual path is something living, it is alive. And eventually, when it becomes serious, guidance will be there. It has to be. Or else you're just trapped in your own mechanics. So for this beginning, any meditation practice is serious one, because you're just sitting and listening to music and going to that, and that's not what I'm talking about. That is just good to calm the mind, but it doesn't do anything else. It becomes something that feeds delusion. Eventually from 1 hour you move to 2 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, and don't worry much more than that. Because after you reach that level, if guidance is not there, then you will feel that you need to push it more. And if guidance has appeared, then it will tell you how to move forward, which direction, what technique, if no technique, whatever is there, it will be real for you, not just a product of your imagination. And when you go for this diving, those who have the calling in their hearts, prepare yourself, because the life that you know, the life that you imagine, the life that you're trying to protect or is precious in any way, it probably will disappear altogether. And that will be a good thing. It will not seem a good thing, for sure. Or else it would just be more of the same, even by being different. The seeker of truth travels the road that guidance points, but doesn't really associate with what he has to do now and what he will do tomorrow. It doesn't matter. His focus now on what guidance is pointing. Until then, until he reaches that level, he is preparing himself to be honored by guidance, to be worthy of guidance. He is working to become a seeker of truth, with the best motivations, working hard. It is like this. Okay, so next satsang will be Saturday, 9 o'clock in the morning, Brazilian time, UTC -3. Till then, make the best use of your time. Make it real for you.